Who says that anti-Semitism is real on college campuses? Raise your hands.
On Columbia's campus, we've had probably every other day, it seems, the pro-Palestinian groups are meeting inside of our campus and having events. And I think as a whole, too, it's just the climate is very antagonistic. No one wants to actually debate or actually discuss the issues. It's just beating the other side into submission. And I think a couple of weeks ago, we had an incident that turned violent, too. A Jewish student was attacked outside of our library.
That was a moment and a remarkable one from a focus group of more than a dozen college students, both current and alumni from universities, including Harvard, Penn, Columbia, and USC. It was conducted last month. And joining us right now is pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz, who brought us that conversation. Frank, tell us about what you learned during that conversation and perhaps ways that universities and maybe others, because we don't want to talk about it just strictly in the context of universities, but also big institutions, businesses are dealing with this issue.
Well, I should focus on the solution first, and that is that there's zero tolerance, no excuses, no exceptions, that we need to treat anti-Semitism as hate, just as we treat racism and sexism and any other discriminatory practices. Second, it doesn't depend on context. It should be definite. If someone expresses something that is hostile to the Jewish community, they have every right for their safe existence, and nothing should challenge that. Third, there should be freedom from fear. Just as we say and we teach, believe the victim, believe the woman, when we have these conversations about rape and about sexual assault. It's the same thing with racism and the same thing with anti-Jewish hate, which is really what it is. Fourth, people who are watching this program right now have considerable financial means. And one of the greatest problems is that they continue to donate to these very same institutions or participate in these very same businesses that are exhibiting anti-Semitic behavior. And that has to stop.
Okay, Frank, I want to stop you because I want to ask two delicate and complicated questions. You know, when you listen to that first video, which we brought in ahead of you speaking just now, there is this question mark, and I know there are viewers who are watching this, saying there's a distinction between being supportive of a potential Palestinian state and hate speech against Jews, and that there should be a distinction about that. Sometimes when people talk about context, and when you just said there should be no context, they are referring to that. And by the way, I am not in favor of that, as you know, but I'm just, how do you think about that? And what did you learn when you spoke to students about it?
I'm going to give you a very specific phrase that we heard and saw in some of these rallies. It's not just from the river to the sea, which means no Israel. It's by any means necessary. And that means whatever you do is acceptable in bringing about a Palestinian state. The butchering of children, the raping of women, the hostility towards the Jewish community right here in America. That we have to stop turning a blind eye to it, Andrew, and accepting it for what it is. And it is hate. You are correct. How we define it, how we listen to it is important. But the fact is, these universities aren't laboratories of open discussion.
Right. Let me ask you about the other piece of this, though. One thing that you're doing, I think, is advocating for donors to pull money and the like from universities that you don't think are behaving the way you want them to. And I've advanced ideas like that in many ways over the years as it relates to a whole bunch of issues. Having said that, one of the criticisms that I have gotten as it relates to this specific issue goes to this sort of oppressor framework, which is to say that people look and say that those who have money are then using their influence, and some people are arguing they're misusing their influence. What do you think about that?
I understand that point, and it's because they're trying to silence their opponents. That in the end, we should not even be having this discussion. This segment should not be necessary. You can tell by my tone how frightened I am about the conditions right now at universities as they go back to school after the Christmas break. And I'm afraid that more Jewish students are going to be attacked because those who hate them feel they can get away with it. You would never say this to a black student, and you shouldn't. You would never say this to a Latino, and you shouldn't. You cannot frighten or condemn a transgender student, but for some reason, if they're Jewish, you call them oppressors, and that justifies whatever attack you make.
Let's broaden this conversation out to the business community, because one of the other things that's come up recently is the focus on DEI universities is also attached to the focus on DEI in businesses, which attaches to this idea of ESG, a phenomenon that we've talked about practically almost every day on this broadcast and on this network for the last 5 years, if not more.
And the key component there isn't diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's mutual respect. And that is what the public, what black employees, what Latino employees, what transgender employees aren't looking for diversity, equity, inclusion. They want to know that there is respect for every employee in every community or from every community in every corner of the country. And that these businesses that are putting DEI into an ideological framework, thinking that they have to be progressive. All you have to do is look at the landscape. Consumers are turning against them because they don't want these businesses playing politics. They do want every individual respected. They do want people treated with decency and civility and equality. But that's different from bringing it into a political, partisan, or ideological context. Andrew, we are at a tipping point right now where the public is prepared to get deeply involved and aggressively involved in corporations that they feel do not respect them and do not appreciate their points of view. Don't bring politics into it as you are seeking to broaden the employee pool and have everybody